internet. I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Unpopular Culture, the only show that doesn't need the science of deduction to tell you how dreamy Cumberbatch is. This week, we have several news stories, and by several, I mean more than two. We have Sherlock Season 4 news, we have a release date, and some episode titles to go through. I'm very excited for it. Some people had some negative opinions of Season 3, but I'm on board. I'm still on board for the batch.
Love me some Sherlock.
Next we have the showrunner on CBS's new Star Trek series, which is going straight to their shitty streaming service no one wants to use, has dropped out. And we're going to talk about the ramifications of that and how we now feel about the show. We've talked about it before, but I think this has even more so driven our expectations lower. I didn't think I could get lower than CBS All Access, but you did it, CBS. Good job. Then we have Deadpool 2 news. Looks like the director of the first one, Tim Miller, not returning over creative differences with Ryan Reynolds and the writing team. And we'll talk about that, what that maybe means for the sequel, if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Who knows? And then we have George Lucas news, which is always good news for people who like ranches. Beards that have been staying strong for like 30 years.
It's that weird hook, like, jowl beard, though.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
There's no cheek action going on, which just accentuates the Lucas jowl.
Yeah. And then, finally, some great news for anyone who enjoyed Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane, because next year, you'll be getting even more Cloverfield goodness. But, first, before we talk about all that, back to Sherlock. Recently, a trailer released, I think it was the second trailer, for Sherlock Series 4, starring, of course, Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock and Watson. So, after Series 3, a lot of people were pretty mad at Moffat for one reason or another. They thought it was too fan-servicey. They didn't like the overall direction of the story. I disagree. I enjoyed it. I get what they're talking about, fan service-wise, but I still enjoyed the show. Then the Christmas special came, and I was a little iffy on that, but I did like the premise at the very least. But the trailer for this, Series 4, looks interesting. We're continuing, if you don't remember, from Series 3, Moriarty apparently not being dead. And that seems like it's going to be an interesting way to take the show. I think he is dead, and during the Christmas special, they definitely talked about it in the sense that it's people pretending to be him, but I like that they're taking the idea of a villain coming back to life and not doing the traditional, he's actually alive. It's more, the idea of him and the things he set up are bigger than himself, and you still need to defeat those. I think that's a good direction to take the show, especially seeing as though it's looking like this might be, at least for now, the final season of Sherlock.
Yeah, but we do, I mean, that said, we do know how in love Moffat gets with characters he writes. So
it's not Clara, though, this time. So unless he has a weird fanboy thing over Moriarty, I don't think he's coming back.
Do you think he just kept Jenna Coleman on there he was trying to tap it?
Maybe
he was trying to hit that shit, and he's like,
that's why they cast Peter Capaldi. Also, they're like, oh man, I can't compete with Matt Smith, but if I get an elderly Scotsman, maybe.
No, Capaldi's got that old man debonair dick thing going on.
Yeah, he does.
Like he probably like, you're getting an orgasm if you fuck Peter Capaldi. You know what I'm saying? Like Matt Smith, it's up in the air. Like you could have like a 70% success rate. But it's not Capaldi's guarantee.
I'd like to think Peter Capaldi's pubic hair are just more eyebrows.
It's probably exactly the same height as his eyebrow. You know how it's the grabby part of the Velcro?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sherlock, it's also going to be premiering on January 1st, both in the UK and the United States. In the UK, obviously, on BBC, and in the States, it's going to be on PBS, I believe, which is good because typically what they used to do for the previous 3 seasons, they would premiere in the UK first, and then like months or weeks later, it would come to PBS, which, you know how that goes. People ripped it off torrenting sites way before it got to PBS, so nobody cared.
Doctor Who was doing the same thing, but it was BBC America, and they do it by like a few hours, right?
I can kind of understand that, at least. They're still doing time differences for PBS, because obviously there's a pretty big time difference. I think it's 5 hours between the UK and Eastern time in the United States. Yeah. And obviously when you get out Western time, it's a huge difference. But still, same day, good for them. I still, honestly, I'm an impatient piece of shit. I'm not waiting until 8 p.m. or whatever. I'm probably going to, allegedly, allegedly, if I can find it a place before then, that's happening. So
yeah, I like that it's happening so soon though, because we hadn't had a date on it. And so we're gonna get the Christmas special the week before for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get some Sherlock.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. It's going to be kind of a back-to-back-to-back thing. First of all, Class did come out, by the way. I guess I can talk about it briefly here. Class, which is the Doctor Who spin-off, It was okay. I get what it's going for. It's not for my demographic, but I kind of get it. It's like kind of like a Buffy-type scenario, except I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but then again, I was more the demo when I watched that, younger teenager, whatever. This is definitely a teenage demographic, so for them it's fine. I enjoyed the first episode with Peter Capaldi, although it was kind of weird. Second one, it got into its own thing, Monster of the Week. I get it. People who enjoy it, but it's not my thing. But I got a little fix of Capaldi, and that's the point. And then it's only a couple months until the Christmas special, get some more Capaldi and superhero action, because the Doctor Who Christmas special involves superheroes for some reason. And then we're going to get Sherlock, and then shortly after Sherlock, a couple months later, I believe, the new series of Doctor Who starts. So it's actually not too bad. I hate the long gaps in British TV. I understand why, especially with Sherlock because of the high-profile actors. But man, when Doctor Who goes like a whole year in between shit, I lose my mind. I can't deal with it.
How many times have you rewatched the old series?
I'll tell you what, I got Amazon Prime specifically because I wanted to watch Doctor Who.
Same. Same.
I don't order that much online, so.
I actually order enough online to make Prime worth it. But yeah, the streaming of Doctor Who alone is worth the subscription cost for sure. I'm excited for it. Also, I guess by that time we're gonna be very busy because Marvel's gonna be pushing out a lot of stuff too on Netflix. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Sherlock is one of my favorite series. It might be my third favorite thing on television, like behind Doctor Who and Breaking Bad. I think Sherlock's pretty much my number 3.
I kind of like Doctor Who. I understand why people don't necessarily like it. I understand the problems. I understand the problems of trying to write a genius character, and it always ends up very Deus Ex Machina-ish, and it's kind of stupid. I get it, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the stories, and I like Sherlock Holmes in general. I have the compendium of like all the actual Arthur Conan Doyle stories. I enjoy Sherlock Holmes. It's fun. And then, before we actually move on to the next topic, I want to talk about some of the episode titles. The first is The Six Thatchers, and as per usual, the episode titles are plays on the actual titles of Sherlock Holmes short stories. Originally, The Six Napoleons. This one is The Six Thatchers in reference to Margaret Thatcher. Right. And the reasoning is, in the story, the original one, of course, they always subvert it. The reasoning isn't the same. Usually the answer to the riddle isn't the same. But in the original Six Napoleons, there are 6 busts of Napoleon all over London made from the same cast that have all been smashed, and then there's some murders along with it. It turns out in the original story, there were jewels in them or something. I assume something similar will happen here, where there'll be like busts of Margaret Thatcher. They'll be getting smashed, and there'll be murders, and something will happen. Sure. And then the second one is The Dying Detective, I believe, one of them's The Dying Detective and one's The Lying Detective, one way or the other. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, a two-parter. Most likely.
No.
Really?
It's the original Sherlock Holmes story was called The Dying Detective, and this one is The Lying Detective. It's just
I thought you meant there's 2 episodes back to back called those things. No, you've tricked me, Hugo.
I know.
This is the last time.
My unpreparedness made me a liar. Bummer. And then, finally, the last episode of the season is unnamed, which makes me think this is going to be the final season, at least for now. It wouldn't shock me if in, 20 years, once they're not such high-profile actors and they're kind of doing their own thing, whatever they want, it wouldn't shock me if they came back to do, one thing for the BBC, just as kind of a fun whatever. But, yeah, I'm guessing the last episode, because it's unnamed, it's a spoiler, and it's probably going to be the finale for now. So that's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, I'm glad the series will hopefully get some sort of conclusion that's satisfying. Pretty much for Sherlock Holmes, though, the only satisfying conclusion you can have is Sherlock and Watson riding off into the sunset to solve more murders, because Sherlock's one of those things, whatever the iteration is, that it never really ends. Even Conan Doyle tried to end it with the Reichenbach fall, and people were like, bring him back! And he did. So, I don't know. It should be cool.
The only thing I'm worried about is if they double Reichenbach fall,
Yeah,
And
I hope they don't
and
rehash. Don't rehash that. Even when they did
well,
it, it wasn't that great what they did. I mean, it's
well,
okay.
what I'm
I don't
saying
hate
is
it.
though, what if they bring Moriarty back
Oh,
and
that'd be
it's
terrible.
like
Don't just
it's right, and they
because they.
just kind of do this Batman Joker Dark Knight thing where they're just like destined to do it forever, and it's
No.
like, don't leave it there because that just makes us want to watch the things and it's weak. But like, if you're gonna end it, give me a strong one.
Yeah. I don't really like the use of Moriarty usually as like this arch nemesis Joker for Sherlock Holmes either, because in the books it wasn't
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
not
That's a thing
that,
that
but
came out of the TV shows and movies later, and I get it. You want him to have someone who can match wits with. I understand, but he's dead. Leave it be.
plus,
Even the Christmas special was a little bit too much in my opinion because they kind of redid the Reichenbach fall there as well. Although it was subverted, so I get it, but I don't want that. Give me something new.
I agree. Moving on.
Next, we have Star Trek Discovery news. Like we said, Brian Fuller is stepping down. CBS has brought in someone else who was already writing on the show, but I guess they're going to be promoted to de facto showrunner. I don't know if they actually have the title, but I guess according to Brian Fuller, he's too busy. He's showrunning 2 other shows at the same time. But there's also rumors that possibly CBS is trying to push to get this show out sooner than Brian Fuller wants. He wants the time to build the universe, make sure everything's really fleshed out with the characters, their backstories, the setting, because it's sort of a new setting. It's 10 years before the original series, so they do have some room to work in their own technologies and what they want to do. So that's interesting, but I guess CBS wasn't having that. They just want to push the show out to promote their shitty streaming service. So... bummer.
Nah, this is not gonna go well.
No.
This is gonna be a 1-season run. It's gonna get canceled. The best case scenario is actually if it never gets made by CBS, and then it kind of gets picked up by Netflix or something, or AMC, or I don't know, a place that can actually do it. And CBS, all I gotta do is like kind of give some rights away and sell them, and then we can have a decent Star Trek again. That'd be so nice. It'd be so nice.
I want a Star Trek series so bad right now because we are in such a great place for television. I mean, it really is. It's a cliche, but we're in like a golden age of television right now with these hour-long dramas, even comedies. I mean, just well-written things. So much talent from movies have now gone to television because it often gives more creative freedom, longer run times to allow your characters to be really fleshed out. Stuff like Breaking Bad. I mean, just tons of shows. Jake named some of them. You get it. I want to see a Star Trek series done in that style where, I mean, you have the action sometimes, you have the stuff about aliens and whatever, and you have the discovery, but also you have these interpersonal relationships. A lot of the best episodes of The Next Generation are about the characters and how they interact with each other. And sure, it's set in a sci-fi backdrop, and that's interesting, and you can talk about a lot of philosophical and social issues that way. But it's really interesting to see these characters grow over 7 or 8 seasons, like on The Next Generation. If you could do that now, with competent writing and directing, and all the resources available to television that didn't used to be 20 years ago, you could have an amazing Star Trek series, maybe the best of all time, but CBS is just shitting it out because they have no respect for their own IP. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and man, and the market is pretty starved for quality sci-fi. I think Westworld is the best one out there right now that's not Doctor Who, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's pretty much 2 things right now. Stranger Things was sci-fi, but it was, the season is done. We all
Black
binged
Mirror.
it immediately. Black Mirror is more of a Twilight Zone-esque,
I get it.
though. It's not like a serial, but I would put it in sci-fi for sure. But yeah, it's just we want it. Like the people want it. We don't want shit. We want a good effort. So take as long as you need, and people will wait for Star Trek. I have no idea why you'd hurry that sort of thing, and I especially don't know why you wouldn't just air it on CBS.
I don't understand either. Terrible idea. But the new showrunner who's coming in, he was already working on the show, but I guess now he's becoming the head guy. And by the way, Brian Fuller still going to be involved on a producer level, but he's not going to be there day to day. So he, I guess, still is going to have maybe some input, but not to the level that he was going to originally. Although it could just be a title that they let him keep, and maybe they're going to just kind of, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the new guy who's actually going to be day to day in charge, Akiva Goldsman, and Jake, I didn't tell you his works beforehand because let's call him eclectic. Okay, so here are some of the things he's written. he has written The Da Vinci Code, the movie. Which,
okay, well, Dan Brown wrote that.
Yeah, but he wrote the screenplay.
That barely counts. It reads like a screenplay.
He wrote the adaptation of I Am Legend, the Will Smith one.
Okay.
But he also wrote A Beautiful Mind, which is a great movie that I think that won an Oscar, I believe. But here's my favorite. He also wrote Batman and Robin. So...
Ooh. I mean, to be fair, that wasn't... I don't know if that was all his fault.
But good news, he wrote about 12 episodes of Fringe. So...
Was it what season of Fringe? If it was the final season of Fringe, it's all his fault.
Hold on, let me look. I can find out. Fringe.
Yeah, if like the first 2 or 3 seasons of Fringe are genuinely good sci-fi, and they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just shove it all into one fucking season. Who cares? Joshua Jackson, just go be moderately good looking.
It looks like he wrote in every season that there was.
All right.
So
some of the episodes in the final season were fine. It's just the plot was shit. Anyway, so he's got... I'd say that's a well-rounded background, and especially lends to something you'd need for Star Trek. You got a lot of eclecticism, and you have different subject matter, and just because there's a sci-fi background, Star Trek doesn't really deal in sci-fi as much as you'd think. It deals in politics and culture more than anything.
I'm just hoping they hire Arnold Schwarzenegger to come on and be a scientist who gets in a freezer accident and then can only talk in ice puns. That's my goal.
I would love bat nipples.
And then 8 seasons. It's like, that's their data. He's trying to stop doing ice puns over 8 seasons.
I can't chill out!
So yeah, I'm not super thrilled for that show. I mean, I still hope it is. I am begging for a good Star Trek. I really am. I'd love to. Star Trek's like... I like Star Wars. Star Trek is my favorite of that genre of sci-fi. That's not something like Black Mirror. That's something that's serialized. It's a group of people in a sci-fi situation week to week. I mean, and I'm talking every series of Star Trek. The original series, The Next Generation. I actually finished Voyager a couple months ago. I never actually sat down and watched the whole thing. Better than I thought. Not great, not on the level of The Next Generation, but it's still a fun show and has some... The good episodes that are good are just as good as the good episodes of The Next Generation. It's just they're farther between each other, you know what I mean?
The first 2 seasons of Next Generation are hard to watch.
Yeah, they are. And then Deep Space Nine. I like Deep Space Nine. I enjoy Enterprise for what it is.
I think you just like space Jews.
Okay, Quark is... That's not
space Jew.
That's not Star Trek's fault necessarily. The air quotes Jew character goes back a long ways in fiction, especially in fantasy, and Star Trek is an extension, and sci-fi in general is an extension of fantasy, just in the opposite direction. So the money-grubbing Jew character, not good, but I understand why it's a thing in fiction, because it's just a thing that's so ingrained. But yeah, I get it. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Still a good show, though, and actually Quark is one of my favorite characters, so...
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? So, anyway, Deadpool 2. No segue. Deadpool 2. Fourth wall break. Anyway, Tim Miller has left the project over creative differences with Ryan Reynolds and the writing team. And the reason for that is at least twofold. Apparently, Tim Miller wanted to take the sequel and have the budget be 3 times that of the original and focus more on a typical action superhero story. Whereas the writing team and Ryan Reynolds wanted it to keep it more in the realm of the first movie where it's a personal story. Of course, there's action, but to focus on the humor because that's what makes the first movie work according to them.
Well, okay.
I happen to agree.
I am 100% on board with the writers in this situation. Like, let me give you an example of why people like the Deadpool comics. I have a little comic panel right on my phone right there, if you can see that. It's basically a group of assassins looking for the perfect weapon to take down Deadpool, and there's no action in this scene. It's just them talking about what would make the perfect assassin. And here's the lines. And of course my secret weapon, Marcus, Centaur Warrior, who was bitten by a werewolf and bonded with an alien symbiote. A perfect soldier. And then the guy that he's talking about, the symbiote werewolf centaur, goes, well, I am diabetic. Like, it just makes sense, you know? It's just, that's how it should be. And they want to incorporate Cable in this one. I don't need to see shootouts and shit. Like, I thought the last time it was really well done, because the backbone of it was the fight on the bridge for the good 2/3 of the movie. But it wasn't a bunch of sequences like that. It was that in the airship fight. Right. And that was it. And that was fine. I'm totally on board with Ryan Reynolds and crew in the way they want to approach this. I have full faith in them. I don't think the director matters much at all at this point.
But I don't think the first movie, the strength of the first movie was the writing. Let's be real. And Ryan Reynolds, obviously, he nailed it. I think the directing was fine in the first one. Some of the shots were cool, but at the end of the day, it wasn't anything extraordinary. So I think they can definitely go out and find someone who will work just fine. And I'm glad they're staying like this. For instance, in the first movie, there were 2 instances that got cut for budgetary reasons that actually, I think, kind of made the movie better.
There's going to be a huge shootout.
That's at the end, and then there was supposed to be a motorcycle chase through the city where Ajax gets on a motorcycle and goes, and then Deadpool chases him on another motorcycle. But they didn't have the budget, so that scene remained on the bridge. I thought it worked better that way. And at the end, of course, like you said, Deadpool forgets his guns in the taxi for a second time, and they end up doing a melee battle instead of a gunfight. Now, don't get me wrong, in the second one, I hope they do have a bigger budget and they can do kind of a gratuitous gunfight, because that's fun, and we didn't see that in the first movie.
I think the opening scene is going to be the gratuitous shit that we're used to, because he's going to be like, he's been Deadpool for a while.
Right, and they can even make the joke, like, see, we have a bigger budget this time or something, you know, and I assume they will make that joke. Mm-hmm. But I don't think turning Deadpool into a straight action movie, and it is an action movie, but it's also a comedy, and it's got a good balance there. Relying too heavily on the action will take away the thing that made Deadpool work in the first movie. And I'm not saying it's a masterpiece. It's got problems. It's got some stupid jokes, but it still is what it is, and it's unapologetically that. Another thing they were arguing about, I guess, was the casting of Cable, because Cable is in the sequel, and Kyle Chandler was going to be cast as Cable. If you don't know who Kyle Chandler was, he was the investigator in Wolf of Wall Street. He was on, I believe, Friday Night Lights. He's done some stuff. I have nothing against the dude. I can't really picture him as Cable, though.
No, the guy that was the bad dude in that James Cameron movie, Avatar, the general, he was on Twitter. People were like, this guy should be Cable.
Oh, he
would
looks
make
like
a good
him,
Cable. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I trust Ryan Reynolds at this point. I hope he has some pull with the studio at this point because of how much money he made them after years of hounding them about this fucking movie.
Like 9 years.
And then nailed it out of the park with it. I hope he can go to the studio and be like, listen, I know what I'm talking about. For 10 years, I was telling you to do this, and I made you huge margins on a movie that you thought would bomb because of its rating and content. So fuck you. I get to decide final who's Cable.
Ryan Reynolds and company there changed the game as far as R-rated is concerned, because now Logan is R-rated, and it's probably going to be the best Wolverine movie ever.
That's not a very high bar, but I get what you're saying.
No, but the best how about this? Best X-Men related movie.
Maybe. It might be.
Because Deadpool's fringe, but yeah, Logan looked really, really good, but I think the R rating lends itself to these hyper-violent Marvel characters.
Sure. I agree. And I'm kind of glad that X-Men and Deadpool aren't within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they would get neutered so hard. So I am glad that now they're actually getting appropriately treated by Fox, thanks to Ryan Reynolds. So thank you, Ryan Reynolds. Not that you'll ever see this, but good job, hypothetical Ryan Reynolds.
If he does see this, I call dibs.
Okay. You get the front. I'll get the back.
I'll take the front. I'll lick his abdomen clean. I'm not even gay, and I'd fuck the shit out of Ryan Reynolds.
All right, so George Lucas news. I wish we had a logo to go here. Wouldn't it be great if we had a thing that went like George Lucas news?
You're kind of forcing my hand here. Here, this is the best I could do. There it is. You're welcome.
Anyway, George Lucas. Indiana Jones 5 is moving forward with Harrison Ford, of course. Still is Indiana Jones. I'm surprised they got him back to do this, because I assumed they had to drag him to the set to do Han Solo one more time.
It's so weird. You always hear this this story about Han Solo, Harrison Ford, where he's like begrudgingly doing these roles. Like, part of you's gotta like being Han Solo in Indiana Jones, right?
I kind of get why he'd get annoyed at this point. Probably more because of the fans than the actual thing. I don't think it's because he doesn't enjoy the work. I think it's probably because Star Wars fanboys are some of the most obnoxious fans.
Does he even go to the cons or anything anyways?
He goes to events and stuff. He did something for the anniversary of Star Wars. He did some stuff to promote Force Awakens, obviously, but no, not really. But come on, even just when you're... Most celebrities, I'm sure you get bugged, but I'm sure sometimes you can go to the grocery store, and be fine, or go to a restaurant and not get bugged, especially if you maybe throw
okay, even if he never did Han Solo, he'd still get hounded. He was Jack Ryan for 20 years.
He gets hounded way harder because
Oh yeah, but I mean, he
Solo.
also did Blade Runner. I mean, he's that guy, and it's his own fault for being a good actor. I get it. There's a certain level of disdain every performer should have for their audience, just so you remain level-headed. But come on, Harrison, like a little bit of it you probably enjoy. I don't think he lets on to it though. I don't think he'd ever say, "Yeah, I really enjoy being famous," but come on. He likes it enough. He keeps doing these movies he says he's not going to do.
Oh, I know. But anyway, he is going to be in Indiana Jones 5. However, George Lucas, much like the new Star Wars series, not involved at all. And I don't mean to be mean when I say this. I am relieved. Very relieved.
I'm relieved too. Was he involved in the last one?
He was the one who wanted to do the interdimensional aliens skull.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Is Shia in this?
Not as far as I know. No. It's just going to be Indy.
Okay. Is his dick? Because his dick has been out in some movies recently. All the Shia movies have Shia dick in them.
I do not think that they solely cast Shia LaBeouf's dick in this movie, no.
I think Shia is considering redoing Holes, but his dick is now him. His dick, like a little Shia dick puppet of himself.
I'll watch that, but only if his friend with the crazy hair is just a vagina with a bush like that.
0?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a circle too if you like do a speculum or something. Oh, this is getting grody.
Anyway, so he's not involved in Indiana
No legs?
Jones.
Hold on, I need to figure this out. No legs, just like a floating vagina.
Yep.
Okay, I think special effects are there. I think we could pull this off. All right. Anyways, continue.
I'm pretty glad that's the case. And, I do give Lucas credit for some idea things. I read actually an interesting story about the actual first table, not table read, but like a round table where Lucas, Spielberg, and another guy, might have been a producer or a writer, I don't remember, were talking about conceptualizing Indiana Jones. And from that discussion, Lucas had most of the good ideas there. Like, I guess Spielberg was trying to have a thing where, like, Indy would have his whip and he'd grab a beer with it, and the other guy wanted Indy to be like pulling down people's pants with it, and they didn't really get the why is he a professor, what is the point of that, and Lucas had to be like, no, the point is that it's a juxtaposition. He is an intellectual, but he also is an adventurer, and no, his whip isn't some funny thing for gags, it's a serious tool he uses, whatever. And in that I was like, wow, what happened to you, Lucas? Genuinely.
I know exactly what happens.
What happened?
He gets a fucking boner for himself.
I guess so. What the fuck, Lucas?
He has hubris. What that happens with some people is you have a good idea, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a really good idea," and then you try to make the idea better by kind of ruining the soul of the first idea, and that's what he did with number 4, because he kind of neutered the whole thing. And I know it's always been mystical and crazy and kind of fan theories, and Ancient Aliens made sense to go after. But the way they did it wasn't well done. And it kind of felt like Harrison Ford was like just Harrison Ford in an Indiana Jones costume.
Yeah, I had no problem with the aliens or interdimensional aliens, whatever the fuck.
Right, it was the execution.
Yeah, the movie was just bad. That's why it was bad. It wasn't because of the aliens. That's actually kind of an interesting thing to do. I like the concept of, okay, because he's older, we'll move it to the 50s, and because it's the 50s and not the 40s.
Roswell and shit makes all the sense in the world.
Instead of doing that sort of mystical archaeological thing that was more prevalent in serials of the time anyway, now we'll do 50s, and because sci-fi is so popular in the 50s, we'll go along with that and do a sci-fi-ish story, but still in the Indiana Jones universe. That's a good idea. That's a great idea. That could be very fun if done competently. But I gotta say this. Spielberg, I don't even think did a very good job in 4. And
Spielberg's been on the way down since forever.
I don't understand what happened. And Spielberg has a really great track record, even his movies that I don't like very much because they're not great. I like usually, like Hook, not a great movie, but I enjoy it. In fairness, Robin Williams gets some credit for that. But lately,
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, his movies lately just haven't been hitting. Even like The Big Friendly Giant, which was supposed to be huge for, I think it was Disney that did it and had him direct, that bombed pretty hard. No one even heard of it. I didn't know it was out until way after, and I was like, what, they made that?
I mean, the dude did War Horse. The last one, I think he had did he do Super 8? I know J.J. Abrams was involved with that, but didn't Spielberg direct that? I can't remember. I thought he was involved.
No, I don't think that was him.
But still, like, he isn't,
I get
like,
why you'd think that, though.
It's just not, like, we haven't had another Jurassic Park come from him. You know what I mean?
No. But, and this is a good thing in part 2. I mean, this is going to happen. We need new voices in directing, and I think we see them more so now. J.J. Abrams gets a lot of shit, but I do think J.J. Abrams is a good director. He is. He has his own style, and there are plenty of other directors out there up and coming, especially because
chilled.
the film industry.
He's chilled on the screen flare shit.
Yeah. So yeah, gradually older popular directors, their voice isn't as prevalent and maybe doesn't resonate with people as much anymore, and that's fine. That's just how things work. But I'm hoping Spielberg isn't involved in this one either, if I'm being totally honest. And that's not like a fuck you, Spielberg. I just would like to see a new person come in and give their vision for it, and maybe if you're going to do a final chapter, maybe, I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to get at.
I don't even know what mystery they could do.
They could take, like, one of those games. They did the click and point ones. They could do Atlantis. They could do...
I was thinking Atlantis, but that's so 90s, you know what I mean?
No, I understand. It is hard to do, which is why the aliens were a good opportunity to change things up. But let's see, it's been another... They could probably set it in the 60s now. If it's the 60s, what was going on in the 60s?
Nuclear stuff, I guess.
They already did that.
Like Agent Orange, the beginning. You know what would be actually interesting? You could do like a JFK thing, kind of like, you could do like your own National Treasure situation.
Maybe.
Like,
but what would the artifact be that they're going after? You know what I mean? They could involve that.
It could be an actual magic bullet or something. Who knows? I have no fucking clue. I'm just saying, like, there was enough shit going on in the 60s to make stuff pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to have him in the U.S. though, doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, I don't think this movie's even necessary, if I'm being totally honest. I'm totally fine with the series dying. I don't even want to remake at this point, like, in any capacity. Actually, there's things coming out that could replace this slot for Indy. They're doing an Uncharted movie, which might be good or bad, but...
The games are good not because of the adventure, but because of the puzzles and stuff.
Right, but I like the character of Nathan Drake. He's fun. He could kind of be a... Indiana Jones type. I hope they don't try and push...
Isn't that Nolan North, though?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not Conroy. I think it's North. Those are the two guys that do everything. So
yeah. And then they're also doing a Tomb Raider movie based on the remake game that happened a couple years ago.
That could be good, because Angelina Jolie's Tomb Raiders were just shoot-'em-ups, which were garbage.
Yeah, but Daisy Ridley, I guess... Rey from Star Wars might be playing Lara Croft, and that's a great cast, especially for this version of Laura, who kind of starts off in over her head, but as the movie goes on, as the game goes on, and presumably the movie, she gets more and more survival skills, and she's a good cast for that. So that could be good.
They need to stop making me fall in love with Daisy Ridley. It's gonna get real awkward.
Yeah, I just think people are sick of remakes, so let's. You can even have things in the same genre that take things from other movies, but it's new and add something fresh. Indiana Jones only exists because movie serials existed and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg liked them. Like, Indiana Jones isn't an original idea. It steals from a lot of stuff in the same way Star Wars does. It just recombines them into different ways. And studios now, they want to cash in on name recognition, and I can understand, because it's an industry. You need to make money. I get it. But
a lot of remakes recently.
Real creative movies don't just come from an original idea. It can come from recombining things that you have enjoyed from your past.
Well, this is the exact reason Stranger Things was a phenomenon. Like it banked in on 80s nostalgia, sci-fi tropes, some Stephen King-esque stuff, but it nailed it, and it even felt Spielbergy at times with the wide scopes and the kid actors and the this kind of go get 'em attitude. You know what I'm saying? Like, it had a very E.T. to it, and it was the perfect tone, and that's what we need. We need take elements from these ideas and make them into a new story with new characters and really explore it in a different way, and people will go. You don't need like Ghostbusters and shit like that. Like, we don't need this. No one wants it. I can't imagine anyone asked for a Ghostbusters reboot, let alone like I'm sure we would have taken a Bill Murray version, but no one wanted a reboot, and no one really wants another Indiana Jones. So I don't know. I'll watch it probably. I don't know if I'll go to theaters to see it. It depends on what else is out during the time, but come on, we could do better than this.
I agree. And then, speaking of directors, J.J. Abrams, who was behind Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane as a producer, apparently his new movie he's producing, The God Particle, I believe it's called, is also going to be a part of the Cloverfield universe, which is interesting because I don't know how much you guys know about the actual production of 10 Cloverfield Lane, but it didn't initially begin as 10 Cloverfield Lane. It was called, I believe, The Cellar, and it was the same screenplay, same actors and everything, and actually it was already shot, but then J.J. Abrams thought to himself, if I do some additional things in here, add some shots, add on an ending, I can make this part of the Cloverfield universe and sort of begin a shared universe for that, which is an interesting idea. It's already a good movie, but
that was an excellent sci-fi film too.
It
doesn't start out like that. It's just a tense thriller,
right?
And you don't know what to believe, and then they add this twist that at first you're like, "What the fuck?" But it just plays well. It's well executed. It keeps it in universe, and I don't know. This new one sounds cool too.
Yeah, the God Particle coming out, I assume they'll change the name to something Cloverfield related. I assume each movie will be Cloverfield something before or after, whatever. It takes place on a space station. Maybe they'll name the space station Cloverfield. I don't know. And there's scientists on there, and they're working with some sort of particle collider. And they do an experiment, and they look outside the windows, and now the Earth is gone. So they're just basically floating in space. I don't know if they're in the same position in space, or if Earth moved, or if they moved, or if they'll address it in the movie, but that's the case. And then after a while, they figure out, hey, look, there's another space station over there. What's that all about? And that's basically the conceit of the movie is, oh, we're out alone in space. Either Earth moved or we moved, but there's another thing over there we better investigate. Which is a good setup for a sci-fi mystery movie. Cool.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't sound like it ties in with the rest of the universe, but it totally could. Because you could do all sorts of things with sci-fi, but of course that sounds different than the found footage monster flick we saw the first time, or the intense John Goodman-led thriller we saw in the last one.
Right. I actually like where they're going with this. If they're going to turn this into just a sci-fi anthology, basically vetted by J.J. Abrams, who looks at the movie and says, this is a good movie. Let's put this under this brand. And when you see this trailer or you see the name Cloverfield, this is a good sci-fi movie.
Sure.
It might be an anthology. I assume there'll be small things to tie them each together. For instance, the Slusho thing is in the first two films. The company that the guy from the first movie was going to be working for is in both films.
By the way, Lost is in this same universe.
Is it? What?
Yeah. All the Slusho stuff and all that's Lost.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Let's just forget about Lost, though.
Well, Lost would have been good had they not gone too long with it. Yeah. They needed to tell their story in probably one less season.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm interested. One of the things I like about the Cloverfield movies is that they tell a story in a universe but from a unique perspective, and let me explain what I mean by that. The first movie is a typical kaiju movie, but from the perspective of someone on the ground, which is, at least at the time, an original idea.
Well, TJ Miller does a really good job behind that camera, too. And I know he's not the actual cameraman the whole time, but I'm just saying, like, the performance, it really did well. If you have not seen the original Cloverfield, you need to see it. It's a very good movie, and remember, it was the first one to really do the found footage the way you see it in the movie. And then people copied it because it did well. It's very mysterious too. I love that. A really good thing about the Cloverfield movies is they don't explain things to you hardly at all, but never too much.
Right. People often say that Blair Witch Project is the first movie to really explode the found footage genre. I would argue not really, because that movie came out and it was very popular. It was a phenomenon at the time, don't get me wrong. But there weren't a lot of copycats right after that, at least not big ones. But then Cloverfield came out. It was a mix of Cloverfield and Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was the one that really did it, but Cloverfield was a part of it. And now every 10th movie is found footage, and usually it's unnecessary and they don't use it well, but there is a reason that it became popular, and it's those two films that really cemented it as, hey, you can make a movie and make money doing it this way.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And the second movie, like I was talking about with the first one, different perspective. The second movie is spoilers-ish. It's been out long enough where I feel okay saying this. It's essentially a monster movie again, but it's not from the perspective of people above for 99% of the movie. It's a small character thriller drama that takes place in a bunker underground during those events, and that's interesting. So I'm hoping this third one, I don't know if it's going to have to do with the monster threat directly. I have a feeling it's going to be alternate universes or something. You
forget you're in a monster movie during 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Right.
That's why it's a good movie, because it's so subversive in your expectations. You have to watch it again. It's just one of these movies where it's not like the best movie I've ever seen in my whole life, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It surprised me. The acting is fantastic. The writing is really good, and it's tense the whole time. It's very tightly wound, and you feel like at any moment that spring is just going to trap you. It's really, really nice. It's one of the better sci-fi movies that's come out in the last 5 years.
And people were bad when that came out and they found out it didn't really have a strong connection to the first Cloverfield. I mean, the monsters at the end are more likely aliens and they're a little bit different. They don't look the same, so it's not necessarily the exact same universe.
Well, but of course, and hold on one second. The Cloverfield, the original movie, has tons of fan theories and stuff and speculation about it. Something did fall from space in the first movie, so it totally could have been the kaiju.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, they don't explain anything, so we might never know, but every single one of these seems to be at least loosely tied together.
Yeah, it would be interesting if they never fully connected. I'm fine with that, as long as at the end of the day, when a thing says whatever Cloverfield on it, that's going to be a good movie. It's been vetted as a decent sci-fi movie with a strong director and strong cast, and that's what that label means. Not necessarily that I'm going to get a big mystery that ties together across 10 movies, but that's going to be a good movie. And that's okay. I'm okay with that.
As long as it doesn't turn into Saw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Saw, but sci-fi.
Or really formulaic.
Yeah.
It's I don't want another last 10 minutes. It's a big twist at the end. I don't need that.
Right.
Give me solid writing, a good story, and tell the story you want to tell without worrying about the gimmick, and it'll be good. And hopefully that's what we need to do. Because of course you and I are obviously high sci-fi fans. There's not enough good stuff out there.
Yeah.
So
it's actually been better in recent years though. Stuff like Interstellar.
Oh, so Interstellar is one of the better ones. I just watched The Martian again the other day.
The Martian is kind of sci-fi. It's a 5 minutes into the future type movie, but I would argue it's soft sci-fi. It's a character movie, but I'd still say that's sci-fi.
I have a Watney's potato shirt somewhere.
Anyway, I think that's it for this episode. A lot of good stuff this week. It'll be interesting. Oh God, what is next week? The election? It's getting close.
Fuck. We're gonna have to talk about that probably a little bit. Also, side note: if you have Skyrim Legendary Edition, you've been upgraded to something you probably already had with mods. I don't know how much better the graphics are, but it's something. So
I actually heard
I'm gonna boot it up. See how it goes.
The sound is worse now, apparently, because the format they originally used in the release of Skyrim was an uncompressed audio file type, but something about the new engine or updated engine they're using for Skyrim new edition, whatever, all the files are very compressed, so some people are already mad that it doesn't sound as good.
Luckily, Steam Workshop exists.
Yeah, that's an easy fix. They'll just replace those files with the files from the original, and then it'll be fine. But honestly, mods, get mods. It probably looks better than the new edition anyway. But I think it runs on 64 whatever architecture instead of 32, so it's supposed to run smoother.
I'm down with that. Yeah, I'm gonna boot it back up and see how it goes. But because it was a little dated last time I tried to play it again.
Yeah.
But it's 11/11/11 is when that came out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. 5 years ago.
It's crazy.
Dang.
Anyways.
Yeah. So. Until next... Oh, I guess I should do the spiel. You can always follow us on Twitter at @TheRealUnpop. We have a minion locked in a basement that actually tweets from there now. So be nice to them.
We taped his hands to the phone.
Yeah, they only get food from us if they at least get 10 retweets a day. So.
That's a very low bar.
Yeah, well, I'm a generous god.
You
can also, if you want, donate to our Patreon. Oh, God. You know what? Don't do that yet. I got to check that. It's been forever since I looked at that. We might owe someone a thing. I don't know. Don't donate yet.
Don't do it. Too much pressure.
Yeah.
And you could also subscribe to the channel. Get more of this. We'll be playing some video games. I just impulse bought Grand Theft Auto. Who knows what happens with that? Could be nothing.
Yeah. So, until next time, I'm Hugo.
I'm Jake.
This has been Unpopular Culture. God damn it, George Lucas. Why can't I quit you?